Your desired reality already exists, but everything that you desire is happening in a parallel reality. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to jump into that version of you experiencing the reality that you desire. So, in order for me to make this make sense, I need to explain parallel realities. I need to explain quantum mechanics, the observer effect. So I'm going to be covering a bit of that in this video. Okay? I've been creating a lot of content on Instagram, but it's like I gotta make a million videos, and I'd rather just come back on YouTube and create longer, informative videos for you guys. Okay, so how are we gonna start this off? We're gonna start this off with understanding, right? Identity. How do you define yourself? How do you define yourself? Once we reach a certain age, we begin to identify ourselves with where we live. With our occupation, our career, work, career. With the places that we frequent, all right? Places we go to, environment. With the kind of music that we listen to, music, social places. And as a result, we identify with the money that we earn, money we don't earn. So income, status. This is just a general overview of how we begin to identify ourselves in society. This is how you begin to identify yourself, right? But what happens, and this is why I talk a lot about spiritual conscious awakening, right? After you undergo a conscious awakening and you step out of the false self. So we're going to call this the false identity. False identity. After you undergo a conscious awakening, you wake up to this illusion that this is not who you think you are. This is not who you think you are. This is the mask that you are wearing. This is the mask that you are wearing in the 3D, in your everyday life. But this is not who you actually are. This is the version of you that you are tuning into, that you are believing. And so if we want to jump to our desired reality, if we want to experience with more effortlessness the things that we want, well, first and foremost, we need to ask ourselves, is this version of ourselves that we are tuning into, right, that we are believing, is this, I don't know where to write it, but is this the person, is the person that you're trying to become, or the version of yourself that you are trying to embody and experience? Is the life that you desire, is that in harmony with this person, with the places they frequent, with the habits they have, with how they think? Because again, this is a mask. This is an identity that we took on from, childhood. We went to certain places. We went to certain churches. We listened to conversations over and over and over again. And the way that our mind works is something that is often repeated becomes true. So the truth is very subjective. The truth is very subjective. Anything that you say to yourself, anything that you overhear, that you intake to your consciousness becomes your truth, which means this embodies your reality perception, your experience. And so if you want to earn more money, if you want to experience more peace, more joy, well, you have to first become self-aware. You need to become aware and wake up to some degree that this is a false sense of self. This is not who you really are. This is not the only version of you that you can experience, that you can create. Because the way that the mind works, the mind grows towards its environment. The mind becomes its environment. The mind becomes its environment. And so what tends to happen is our habitat, where we live, becomes our habits. Right? So habitat, our environment, becomes our habits. For instance, if you live in Miami, right? Miami is known for people who work out, people who take care of themselves, people who work from home, people who are entrepreneurs, drive luxury cars, go on yachts. This becomes your environment. And so your mind is going to grow towards its environment. So the thoughts that you think about, the career that you desire is going to change if you were to live in a small farm. If you lived in a small farm, you wouldn't think that you could afford to rent a yacht or buy or rent a Lamborghini. You wouldn't think that. But because this is a false identity, this is a mask, this is not your true, most authentic self, this mask can come off and we can put on another mask. Once you start to look at reality like different masks that you can perceive reality from, change becomes more effortless. Change becomes more effortless once you understand that your mind is simply believing in its environment and what is being repeatedly absorbed. So if you change what you are repetitively absorbing in your subconscious, your perception of yourself and your limits are going to change. This is how you become someone else. And in order for you to experience a different reality experience, the observer must change. The observer must change. You see, ancient mystery schools taught that every reality has a corresponding observer. So, what do I mean? Quantum mechanics, quantum physics explains that there are electrons that our eyes cannot see. These electrons exist as pure potential, right? And our thoughts are electromagnetic. And whatever we think about, we are creating in the quantum field, in a dimension that we cannot see. But we are creating it the more we think about specific events, specific experiences. We are creating it within our mind because we are tuning into that reality. But when you take your mask off of this false sense of self, of this one version of you, and you begin to change your thinking from a new mask, a new environment, a new, series of habits, what you think about is going to change. Therefore, quantum mechanics explains that whatever you observe is what you are going to tune into and begin to experience more of. This is why, right, I know people with parents who are police officers. They talk all day about crimes that they experience even when they aren't on the job. Well, this is because of the observer effect. They took on the identity of a police officer, so even when they're not on the job, their conscious is one with a reality where people are natural criminals or there's crime happening all over the place, versus someone who isn't a police officer. They don't ever really see crime. It's only on the news. It's only on other timelines. This is an example of wearing a mask. Changing your mask helps you shift into another identity, into another you, where you are experiencing another experience. But because you believe that your current conditioning is all that there is, and that there are infinite timelines and parallel realities all happening at the same time, because you're probably someone that has yet to undergo a spiritual conscious awakening. But if you have undergone a spiritual conscious awakening, you know what I mean. This is the false self. This is your shadow self. This is your ego. This is your ego. And once you become aware that this is a version of you that you just tuned into, that you created as a result of your environment, then what would happen if you change your environment? What would happen if you change your environment? If you change your environment, you would change your habits. You would change your thinking. You would change the money you spend, the money you earn. You would change everything. Therefore, you would change your reality experience. Things would happen more naturally because you are in alignment with that reality experience. Does that make sense? Changing your environment is the quickest way for you to experience more change in your life, because you literally become someone new. And when you become someone new, what you observe in your mind, the thoughts you think about, the possibilities are instantly going to change. Therefore, the first Hermetic principle states that the all is mind. Everything originates from thought. So as you begin to think differently and see yourself differently, your reality experience is going to be different than your current reality experience. So ask yourself right now, is the money you earn, do you know people in your immediate environment that is earning the amount of money that you want to earn effortlessly? Or is their opinion on this experience difficult? Do they say things like, oh, it's hard to do that, or it's expensive, or we never have enough? Again, your mind begins to believe anything that is repeated often enough as truth. And therefore, if you are not aware of this version of yourself that you are tuning into, if you begin to believe that this is the only version of you that exists, that this is true, locked in, this is why you continue to do more work, put more effort, and you don't see any change. You don't see any change because how you view yourself, what you observe in your mind, the possibilities, you are limiting them. They're finite. This is causing you to remain stuck at the revenue that you earn, remain stuck in the relationship that you have, remain stuck and not live in your potential.